Welcome to the Mike on Much podcast. I'm your host, Mike Veerman. We're here with our friend and trusty producer, Max Kerman. We also have our pop culture aficionado, Shane Cunningham. And rejoining us, I don't know if this is a one-off, if this is a beacon of things to come, but Erica, you're back. What's up? Welcome back.
Hello, guys. Nice to see you.
This is great.
How are you doing?
We're great. This is very much a Max production where I don't think you were planning to join, but Max got in the group and he said, Erica, we want you on to talk about the Grammys, essentially. Is that correct, Max?
Yeah, exactly, because I know Mike doesn't really give a shit, and I know Shane definitely didn't watch it. But then I got some Insta stories last night. You know when you see an Insta story and it has a green circle around where it's like only to close friends and family?
I've never received one of those, but I can imagine it's a thrill.
But Erica, you posted some throwbacks. I don't know if you're like drunkenly singing to different Grammy contestants. It was a very music-themed Insta story.
It was, yeah.
So were you drinking watching the Grammys?
Yes, I was. And yeah, it was awesome. Like I thought the Grammys were awesome. We can get into that later, but
Erica, I have a question for you. Do you not consider me a close friend or family? Like,
no,
why don't I receive stories?
Well, the Instagram like close friend thing it self-generates. Like, do you guys ever post on just your close friend list? I don't know. And the names are always swapping out and changing. I think it is determined by who you interact with the most on Instagram. Oh. And I don't know, maybe I'll add you to the list. I'll add you for sure.
Yeah, we can interact more on Instagram if I can get into that algorithm. I like laughing and I like seeing funny things because I'm not always watching the Grammys, so I like seeing the highlights through friends. Yeah. Curated highlights.
Right.
Good. But before we get to the Grammys, I had a question for you guys. I thought this was fun last week when I kind of introduced a thing off the cuff, which I didn't prepare you for. But in preparing for this podcast, what I've been doing lately is listening to the This Is Important podcast. I know I bring this up on most episodes because it really gets me in a good mood to be with my friends, right? Kind of like that's kind of the tone I want. I want it to be kind of fun and silly and kind of everybody sort of jumping around. And I was thinking I was like, what are other things that I do to mentally prepare myself to do anything? You know, we've talked about we fall asleep to podcasts. The best way you prepare to sleep is to listen to a podcast. And I'm very particular with what podcasts I like to listen to before I fall asleep. For instance, Josh Barrow, who hosts a political podcast, KCRW's Left, Right, and Center. I like him. You know, when I'm thinking about songwriting and I'm stuck on lyrics, I often like to pull up The Hold Steady, who are one of my favorite bands. They're kind of like an indie rock band, but he's a really good writer. He's really fun to read along to his lyrics. He always has a lot of lyrics, and it kind of opens up my mind because sometimes you're stuck in a small little narrow lane when you're thinking about songwriting, and then he kind of opens my mind. But are there other things that you guys do in your life that put you in the right state of mind to take on anything? It could be, I got to listen to this song if I'm going to look at my kid one more time, or I want to listen to this music before I work out. Shane, is there anything that you do, any sort of things that get you in the right state for taking on something?
Yeah, but I feel like I can't say it. I feel like I'll get in trouble.
It's something that relaxes him, clears the mind.
Do it before bedtime.
The tension that he has just melts away.
Anything else, Shane? Besides for that thing that we can't discuss?
No, that's pretty much it.
We don't know.
Yeah.
We don't know what you're talking about.
That's the ritual.
No, sorry. So it's before I do what?
Anything. Literally, it's like is there before like a thing? Anything. I guess it could be a show, or it could be a piece of audio. I think that's what I'm kind of getting at. That kind of because you talk about like players listen to certain music before they hit the court or hit the gym or whatever. Is there anything that just like kind of puts you in a good state to be prepared for something? You know, some people like read a book. I don't know. Some people go for a run, but I'm thinking particularly like media. Is there a media that consumes you, like that gets you in the mood to do something maybe creative even? Like, you know, if you're about to start writing an idea for a TV show, Shane, were you watching something a lot to kind of get your mind
I think
right?
You Should Leave was a great inspiration to me. Mm-hmm. So that would get me in when I was writing the sketch shows, or the individual sketches for the show I was planning on doing. I would watch I Think You Should Leave on repeat. And when I was young, I used to watch Rushmore on repeat constantly. It would always be on a loop. It never was not playing in my house. And I would just try to get ideas and think of ways to write a film or be involved in media somehow.
Yeah, I always find it weird. Sometimes you'll see musicians who say, I don't like to listen to anything when I'm making a record because I don't want to worry about stealing from them. I'm always like, what are you talking about? Like, that's the point of music. It's just to be stealing from shit left, right, and center. Mikey, anything that you do, if you're going to create a brainstorm at work, are you like, okay, this is good. I'm going to be in a good mood for this. Is it eating your lunchtime Ginger, your favorite restaurant?
Oh, I do like that place, the Vietnamese place on Queen Street. Ginger, shout outs. Best.
Well, but now we're allowed to include food. I thought it had to be media we consume.
yeah. You were very narrow.
The rules
before the
keep
definition.
changing on this.
Yeah.
Listen, I'm experimenting here with this idea, so I don't know.
Okay, well, I drink coffee to get in the mood to do certain things. I drink coffee.
That's fair. I got my coffee right here.
I would say so. Like if I'm doing something creative, I'm writing, I listen to classical music. I put the headphones in. There's like this. There's a classical music like YouTube that's like 4 hours long or something. It's so, if you could wear out like a website, you would see that is like my most played. I listen to that on repeat, sort of just.
I did not know that about you, Mike. I had no idea you had any interest in classical music.
It centers me, man. Ever since I was like a young guy, like I used to drive when I first got my license when I was like 16 or 17. I would drive around and it was like 93.6 or something here in Hamilton. It was like the classical station, and I would play it and I would watch like the world, and I would pretend I was watching a scene out of a movie. So if I'd see like a mother and her child walking down the street or people going to the grocery store, the classical music would play, and I felt like I was in a montage, like in a movie.
What makes the music comforting to you?
One, I think that it's like, usually it's uplifting. It can be up tempo. And then even when it goes more like minor, that actually just adds character. But ultimately there's no lyrics. So I don't have to think about, like the only melody is sonic. It's not like I don't have to listen to words. I'm not like distracted by the content of what somebody's saying or like the power of a voice. I'm just listening to sort of music in a more sort of like basic sense, just melody on melody.
That is very cool. I didn't know that about you. Do you want to know one of the most secretly narcissistic things I do?
Yeah, absolutely.
Is it use a bronzer? Because you look very tan right now.
right now.
Yeah.
It's just the lighting in here. I don't know what it is. No, I wish. I got some sun this weekend. It was nice. And the sun's out longer now, right? Like, you look outside at 7 p.m. last night and it's sunny. This is God bless.
You look great right now. I didn't want to interrupt you, but...
A lot of people are saying, drop the skincare routine, Max. I've got that a couple times lately.
Get out.
I think it's because no one's boozing right now. So maybe my skin's a little better.
Aren't people? Am I on a boat alone over here?
But sometimes I'll listen to a new Arkell song with my headphones on, and I'll get really emotional, and I'm looking at the world as I'm walking down the street. I'm like, wow, everything's really heavy.
Boss
really
is coming,
important.
just on repeat.
He just struts down the street. I am the boss.
I am the boss. I am coming. Shane, you drop the boss is coming reference every other episode.
Something about it is just funny. I listen to it during my nighttime routine too.
Maxie, there's this story. I don't know how true it is, but I heard it years ago from my good friend Carl Armstrong, who's like an amazing writer, director, commercials and stuff like that. But he told this story about how Steven Seagal is shooting a movie and he's in his trailer and they send like a production assistant to go get him, and the PA goes into the trailer and they're like, and Steven Seagal is sitting there reading a script and he's tears are streaming down his face. And they said, Steven, like, what's going on? He's like, I just read the most beautiful script I've ever read. And they were like, who wrote it? And he said, me.
I love that.
We knew we were going there with that.
Yeah,
That's very funny.
But I will say, if people do think it's narcissistic, I think anyone that's ever created anything, I was in a band, I had music, me and Shane, we direct commercials, anything that you built. Erica, you're constantly creating things in the work that you do. I think anybody that creates anything absolutely looks at it 1,000 million times and sort of consumes it. And then once you put it out in the world, if somebody gives you a compliment, you end up listening to it or watching it again through their eyes. It's kind of one of the funnest exercises that you can do as a creative. Do you guys relate to that?
100%.
So so if anybody's like, oh, that Max, he's such a narcissist, I think that everybody that sort of makes things does something similar. Also, Max, you just changed the shirt, so we got a little glimpse. You've been working out?
Yeah. What's been going on?
Did it look like I was? No.
There was some nipple action there.
There you go.
Nipples and some ab definition?
Wow.
Absolutely not. That's not true. That's absolutely not true. But speaking of celebs and funny and drinking, did anybody see this tweet that went viral? For those of you who dislike Matt Damon, one time he was at my bar completely shit-faced. He fell and split his head open, and when security got to him and did their safety check, they asked him if he knew who he was. He said, "Come on, guys, it's me, Matt Damon, from We Bought a Zoo."
Yeah, the guy from We Bought a Zoo. Yeah, that was amazing. I love that.
Yeah. But I mean, we can talk about maybe the Grammys while we have Eric here for another.
Well, that's the whole point. We're actually, for our listeners. Yeah, we're losing Erica soon, right? Erica,
we got 10 minutes.
Yeah, I gotta hop off. I have a call with Mr. Gregory Veerman, so I can't push it.
Why don't we get Greg on this? Because Greg would be a great Grammy panelist.
That's funny. Instead of their work call, we just bring him into our call.
Can we invite him to a Zoom link? Do you think that'd be kind of funny? Because I think he'd have a lot of hot takes.
Yeah, send it to him.
Okay, I'm gonna do this right.
Send it to him now. It's with the one out 1:30. It's with a few other people, so I don't think we could push it, but he might join now.
Ooh, man, this is real loose. It's fast moving. Actually, I was talking to my brother. We were talking on the phone last night, but he messaged me. So there's this film that actually the Oscar nominations just came out today, and this film that was nominated for Best Picture, Best Actor, Best Supporting Actor is called Minari. And my brother had messaged me. He'd seen it a couple months ago. And the older woman who plays the grandmother in it, she's like this really sort of fun, like spunky woman. And she has this like kind of lovably antagonistic relationship with the grandson. Anyway, it's this beautiful film. But Greg had messaged me. He's like, I ended up calling her Oma because I saw this film Minari. And I was reminded of our Oma because of this sort of very lovable grandmother in this film. So anyways, we watched it and I was really happy to see all these Oscar nominations because I thought the film was pretty beautiful. Have you guys seen this film yet?
No, I haven't. This is the thing. I haven't seen any of the movies. This is what I realized. I looked at the list. This year is weird for the nominees. You know what I mean? Like, have you guys seen any of the movies? Like in any of the categories?
This is for the Oscars?
Yeah.
No. What are the movies?
Well, we could look up the best pictures right now.
You know, let's talk about the Grammys first, just because we have Erica, and then we can let Erica.
Yeah, because who knows if Greg jumps in, he jumps in. So we have Erica. It's like almost like we brought in like a guest pundit now. Erica, first of all, out of 10, what would you give the Grammys? What did you think of the presentation? What did you think of this sort of unique and bizarre sort of manifestation of the Grammys this year in 2021?
I said last night, I think it's the best Grammys I've ever seen. I thought it was so good. It was the best. Like, I don't watch any other real like award show. I don't really watch like the Emmys or those like smaller ones that have already happened this year. But like as far as remote COVID productions, that they killed it. And I think there was like a lot more performances because there was less people to sort of just like jibber jabber in front of the screen. And they had these like videos prepped where they like kind of did deep dives on certain artists that were awesome. They were super well done. And Trevor Noah killed it. There was like not much pandemic talk, which I also appreciated, like in the speeches and stuff like that. Like it was pretty much, like the speeches all seemed pretty short and like you weren't reminded too many times, like it's a pandemic really, other than the weird format. But yeah,
you know what I like? Awesome. I tend to agree with everything you said, Erica. Like I think they did an awesome job pulling it off. Even starting the show with that sort of Jules Holland-esque round set of performances. Yeah. If you're familiar with that British show, Live with Jules Holland, it's like you just have bands all in the same room and they're kind of going from one to the next to the next. And also like, you know, in contrast to the Oscar nominations where I don't know anybody, this year at the Grammys, I kind of knew everybody, like every single act, like I had, not every single act, but most acts I am a fan of. And it was actually a very like musical night. Sometimes you see in the culture where you're like, especially some new music where I'm like, what the fuck is this? I don't understand it at all. But it felt like everything that was being played last night, I was like, oh, this is like great original music that will like stand the test of time. But one thing I liked a lot, Erica, tell me if you agree, is at a big award show, there's so many random people there. And then you kind of have to go through the crowd like, oh, there's someone who's famous. And then 3 over, oh, there's somebody who's famous. In the room, there was only famous people there.
It's like a dinner party with only the most famous people in the world. It's like, there's Chris Martin. Oh, and he's
sitting
beside
by
Beyonce
himself,
and Jay-Z.
by the way. He was sitting by, which I kind of love.
And so poor weird. Chris Martin, because at one point they give Beyonce a standing O, but because Chris Martin's in the front, he doesn't see what's going on behind him. They're all masked up. So he's just still sitting watching Beyonce walk down because he doesn't know they've all stood up. But what I also found interesting is you have Harry Styles over here on the right side of the room, and then Taylor Swift on the left side. Do you think for them it gets a little weird when they see each other at these events? And or do you think it's like so much time has passed where they're just like, is it like X weird, or is it just kind of like, oh yeah, you're like, you're an old friend?
It's a good question. I don't know.
Well, I think she has so many boyfriends, right? That if you're like 8 boyfriends removed, it's not really the same X-ness.
No, and I think time with anything makes everybody a little bit sort of like, hey, what's up? How's it going? You know what I mean?
No,
those feelings have passed.
I don't think it would be like that for me, but if I feel like with each X that goes by, like let's say I'm married to Alex for 5 years or whatever it's been. The last X is still like, it's a little bit like, a little more tension. But if I had 5 X's and then married Alex for 5 years, that X from 6 people ago isn't as contentious.
Yeah.
So you think it's number of people removed, not intensity of or the uniqueness of that one relationship.
Because then you go through so much bullshit with each X that last X isn't as bullshitty because all people are kind of bullshitty.
Yeah, very true.
Hey man, cheers to love. What were you saying, Max?
I was just thinking, just all like the 6 degrees of separation in the room. That's a really fun game to play when you go like, oh, so and so collaborated with this person. This is like Chris Martin's by himself, but like he has been friends with Beyonce and Jay-Z for a very long time through like Gwyneth Paltrow and that like couple's friendship that happened 15 years ago now. And then like the Haim sisters obviously opened for Taylor Swift, and they've collaborated on music together before. So there's like a lot of I just like love thinking about how all of these people in that room are connected. Just give me 1 second. Ash, you need me?
Hold on, we got Greg joining the chat.
He was going to be a perfect surprise, Mike.
Oh, he can see a Zoom.
Oh, I know, but Max wasn't looking, and then Greg was just going to be there.
Hey, you know what, guys? Greg's going to take over my part of the pod. And Greg, I want the Greg analysis on the pod. I have to go move a car. But Greg, I'm going to listen back to this. It's going to be great. So, Greg, you tell me about the Grammys, and I'll be back in a minute, okay? Okay. So, for our listeners, who knows how this will cut together, but Max was in the middle of a thought, but I think he's parked illegally near Ash's place. In the meantime, Greg Vierman did join the podcast.
Yes. Max was doing an exaggeration on a fun Grammy game to play that didn't seem all that fun. But
was it not working out? I feel like Max always has these ideas.
Well, Greg, he's now assigned you. He wants your Grammy take. What'd you think? Did you watch it? Did you like it? What would you give it on a scale of 10?
Honestly, I watched like a tiny bit of it, and it wasn't really hooking me in. It just all felt very awkward.
Oh, Erica
but
Byrne.
None of these award shows are really working. What did Erica say?
Erica loved it. She said it was the best show she's ever seen. I'm paraphrasing, but
she said it was the best Grammy she's ever seen.
Wait, which part did you watch? I'm curious, Greg.
Yeah,
the credits.
I watched basically the top. I watched Trevor Noah's opening, and then I saw him kind of go into the room, and then I watched a little bit of, I forget who performed. Oh, Harry Styles performed first. That was like, I stopped kind of halfway through because I thought his performance was very bad and boring. So I was like, this is just awkward and weird to see this dude like, yeah. So it just felt funny to me. So I stopped watching, and then I went back and watched like bits and parts throughout the night just to like, I'd go and check on it, and then after 5 minutes, I'd change the channel.
Would you ever treat the Oscars this way? Because I know you're partial to the Oscars, but I also thought you were a music guy.
I'm more into the Oscars. Like, I think the Grammys are a joke. They're stupid as all hell. Like, it's not the same.
Much like The Weeknd, Greg was boycotting the Grammys.
Well, they don't mean anything. Like, they're not like...
Are you hungover right now, Greg? I feel like you're in a mood right now.
No, it's true though. The Grammys are a joke. Like, who gets the Grammys? It's way more political than the Oscars. It's like the cream rises to the top. Like, there's just so much music out there, and it's so subjective. It's so hard to be like, this is the best album of the year. Like,
I guess Vanilla Ice has won a Grammy, so that's a little
totally. Like, I just saw Taika Waititi win a Grammy, and his joke, he was like, they literally give these things to anybody. Like, it's not like there's so many of them. They only televise like 5 of the actual awards. Like, I think it's just the dumbest fucking award show in history, and I don't really take it all that seriously. And the performances are always like super forced and mostly bad, and like it's just.
Max, what was the first thing you heard as you sat down back in the frame?
It's the dumbest fucking award show. They own. All the performances are forced.
So, Erica, do you agree to disagree on this, or has he?
Yeah, we can agree to disagree. No, not at all. It seems like maybe, I don't know, maybe we caught Greg in a move. I'm curious, have Weezer, like, have they not won anything, and that's why you don't like the Grammys?
They won a few Grammys. They won a few, not as many as they should.
Right.
Justice
okay.
for Weezer. Yeah.
Yeah.
Hey, actually, a couple things on that. Hey, did you watch it, Greg?
No, I was just saying I only watch bits and pieces.
Okay. A couple things. Did you see the Strokes, who are a band of our vintage? They won their first ever Grammy. Did you see that?
I saw they won the best rock album.
Yeah, which feels a little funny because I don't know if it really was, but I'm happy for them. That's great.
Maxie, if you say, but just like an all-star selection, if they weren't the ones to get it, who would you have given it to?
Oh, I don't even know who else was really nominated, but it just feels like of all the, it's one of those things, you probably see this at the Oscars too, where it's like, oh, this was not Tarantino's best movie, but he got snubbed on his 3 other best movies, so they're going to give it to him this year because it's sort of overdue. So the Strokes, obviously, their best record is like probably their first or second or third, and they've made 4 others since. So this
have you listened to this new album though? I found it to
it's
be
not
excellent.
bad. I listened to it a little, today.
I think it's awesome.
Ruben produced it.
It's awesome.
You think it's awesome?
Yeah.
Wow, interesting. Okay, Greg, before you got on here, I was taking my sweatshirt off and I revealed my nipple for a moment. The guy seemed to think I'm looking ripped, which I'm absolutely
not. We were
not.
being sarcastic, Max. Calm down.
No. You do look good. Shane's joking. We weren't being sarcastic, but we also didn't use the word ripped. That was a bit of creative license.
If you use hyperbole like that, I'm going to take it back a notch.
Yeah. Well, the reason why I bring this up is that obviously my dream collab in life before this year, Greg, who would have been? Oh, Greg, you're frozen? Oh, he's frozen.
Greg, we lost Greg.
Okay. I'm going to ask the same question to Erica. Erica, in my dream collab in life, who would it have been?
I think it would have been Obama.
No, musical acts.
Obama can
sing.
Maybe Bruce Springsteen?
I'm not involved in this collab, though. It's a duo.
Oh, it's not with you.
I'll just say it. Bruno Mars and Anderson .Paak.
Oh, you're what? We all thought you were saying who you'd want to collaborate.
No. Who do I want to see collaborate? Sorry, that's what I meant to say.
Oh, okay.
And so they, of course, put out this new project, Silk Sonic. The whole record's coming soon. The first single is called "Leave the Door Open," and it is sort of everything you want it to be in a song with those two guys in it. And Bruno Mars, I'm such a fan of. He's so supremely talented. His band works so hard. Every part of the songs and performances and wardrobe and choreography is so well executed. Anderson .Paak is the coolest guy. He's a drummer. He's also a front guy. He's a great rapper, great singer. And they both have so much like joyful charisma, and they love sort of being a part of a team. So to see them together is awesome. But what I also like about them is that neither of them are ripped. They're both little guys, but they aren't that in shape, I don't think. Do you guys know what I'm talking about? Have you taken like a close look at Bruno or Anderson? They seem they like to party a little bit. I like that. You know what I mean? They're not just trying to be like Hollywood movie star. I have a 6-pack, because everybody else in that room,
they're in as good a shape as you or better.
Yeah, probably. But
I think you're in pretty good shape.
No, I'm in okay shape, but sometimes you take a good look at Chris Martin and you're like, oh, this dude is working out, or you take a look at like Brandon Flowers. This dude is working out. These guys aren't really working out.
We'll get back to bodies in a second. As the host, I have to let Erica know if you do have to go for your meeting and you can dip out. Do you have any last words before you go instead of just dropping off?
Not really. It was great to see you guys. Let's do this again. Maybe I'll come to the next record. I miss you guys.
Oh, we miss you.
Last question. Bruno Mars, in shape or out of shape?
Out of shape. And he does like to party. He had that cocaine thing a few years ago.
Wow.
Remember?
One mistake and Erica will not forget it. He's a cocaine addict, remember? 4 years ago? I think that was in 2013, actually. Okay, yeah.
Bye.
Can you delete Greg from the group? Okay, because Greg is.
I just kind of like his picture frozen.
I
sitting
still
there.
see him there. It's kind of distracting, to be honest. But
it's off my screen. Oh, I can get him out. I'm the host here.
So for our listeners, Greg, somehow we lost him off the call there, but his picture is just frozen on the screen. Okay, it has now left the chat. Okay, so Max, your hypothesis is basically it's like Anderson .Paak and Bruno Mars, they're not like ripped the way that some like Shawn Mendes looks ripped. Looks like he works on his body. He looks like he works out. Those guys don't look like they work out.
Bieber looks pretty ripped when he wants to be.
Yeah, it's like those guys probably they probably do some dieting to keep stuff together, but they're not like at the gym for 2 hours a day.
No, and they'll have a beer at the bar. I like that.
That's okay.
Yeah.
Would you agree with that assessment, Shaney boy?
I don't know. In my mind, I don't picture Chris Martin as being in like a workout guy.
He's sneaky good shape.
The way I was introduced to Chris Martin was through the Yellow video. And
that was before he got really famous, though. That was like, I'm talking about like, that was when he was just sort of like a pasty Brit, before he moved to LA. And now he's
the way people are introduced to me is the way I always see them.
So like Chris Pratt is still sort of a chubby, goofy guy?
Yes.
From Parks and Rec?
Yes, right. He is.
See, he's a ripped like superhero dude now.
Yeah, but I feel like it's not here to stay forever. I feel like he's just kind of masquerading as this hunky person where his real personality is this lovable character.
That's true too. That's probably true.
You know what I mean? Sometimes it just feels like something's temporary. Like Kumail.
Yeah,
he's very ripped.
Yeah.
You don't think he's going to stick with it though. You think,
I think
it's for the part, and then
even if he does, it's going to feel temporary to me because that's not how he occupies space in my mind.
I always wonder when people talk about, like, you'll hear actors, they'll get into shape for a role. Like, obviously what Kumail's done is very extreme, and they talk about like sort of the natural high they get from sort of seeing results and then sticking with it. I'm like, do you now work out like 2 or 3 hours a day for like the next 40 years of your life? Or do you reset to whatever your life was like before? He's a stand-up comedian, grab a burrito before the show. Do you not revert to that? You know what I mean? I don't know the answer because I've never committed to working out on that level. One day though.
Did you listen to Brad Pitt? Clooney on Smartless last
yes.
week? So he tells this great story about him on a yacht with the guys.
I almost told this on the last podcast.
Okay,
when
tell
we were
it. Just tell it now.
Basically, he tells this quick story about it's Brad Pitt and Matt Damon and second time Matt Damon's been mentioned in this podcast actually. Yeah. And George Clooney. They're all on this boat at Cannes. They're doing like Ocean's 12 or something like that, and they're taking this boat up towards like the festival. And Brad Pitt says, I'm gonna jump into the water. I'm jumping off the boat. So they're like, all right, let's all get crazy and jump off the boat. Clooney says, so all three of them go up there, and Pitt like takes his shirt off, and he's like got the body of an Adonis. And then Damon takes his shirt off, and George Clooney's like, what are you doing? What are you doing taking your shirt off next to Brad Pitt? And he says that, and then the hosts are like, why? What was it? He's like, well, he was kind of like in his doughy phase. And they're like, oh, Matt Damon's like, no. He's like, Matt Damon will, like, when it's Jason Bourne, there's Jason Bourne. But when it's the off season, like, he doesn't give a shit. And it's like, he just kind of lets it all go.
He's like this pillowy, he had some like funny adjective to describe Matt Damon's body. It was great.
Did you relate to that, Maxie? Like, are you someone that's like, I'll get in game shape, but then when it's the off season, it's the off season?
No, I wish I had a little bit of that in me, because sometimes I wonder, it's like, okay, if I was in that situation where I'm like, okay, you're going to be the star of this movie, we're filming in 3 months, you got to look good. Like, could I do it? Because sometimes I tell myself, I'm like, okay, there's a thing coming up, there's a video shoot coming up, I want to look really good, it's in 3 weeks, you're going to eat really well, you're going to exercise a lot. And then I just never fucking do it. I'm so even Steven. I'm a pretty like moderate person, generally speaking. Like, I don't like to get too drunk. I don't like I like to eat decently well all the time, but I also like my treats and stuff. You know what I mean? I think I'm down the middle. So this idea of being really extreme one way or another, I just couldn't do. But Shane, I think you have the potential to get like, if you were like signing up for like a starring role in a movie, you could get really fucking ripped.
Oh yeah, my whole thing is being balanced through being totally imbalanced. Like,
but they're being extreme.
Yeah,
you're balanced through being extreme.
So these months right now, I'm not running. I'm not eating well. So I'm in my Matt Damon yacht phase. But come June, it's like I'm a different person from June till October. I'm happier. I'm more energetic. I'm doing more physical activities, eating better. But if you added a movie, I could Kumail it up. If you gave me a personal trainer and a chef, like, I could do that easily.
Mikey, could you do it?
I think I can do anything with an incentive. Like, this might be one of the knocks on me. It's like, I kind of need the carrot. If somebody casts me in a movie, it's like, I could see spending the 3 weeks. Like, I need a goal to work towards. But if the goal is just the betterment of my everyday life and health, that just, I'm like, I'd rather have the O. Henry bites and like a couple Coors Light.
Do you think, Mike, if you weren't blessed with such a nice looking face, that you would work on your bod more?
This is the Veerman trick, they've been coasting on their pretty faces.
We don't gain weight in our face, really. So there has been times in our lives where you can sort of if it's wintertime, you're not taking your coat off anyway. So it's like, who cares? And it doesn't really show in the places where you're going to be presented with people. Yeah. I mean, I think, again, to your question, Shane, yeah, I think that and this is why I have a lot of empathy for people of all sizes, because like I've never I know my eating habits and they aren't good. I know that I don't live super great, but it's like through whatever sort of biology and the sort of the chemistry between my father and my mother, whatever my genetics, I'm able to live at a certain level, and it doesn't really show. Whereas I know other people could live actually way healthier than I am, and they won't show that way. So I just have so much empathy for that stuff.
Totally.
My overall point is, yes, if I sort of presented a certain way, then yeah, I probably would, because we're all vain. I'm vain, you know what I mean? So yeah, I think I would, just for that reason, even though it's it's kind of funny. There's truth in everything.
Guys, this is unrelated to anything, but I just had this thought. So the reason why I had to go downstairs was because I'm at Manager Ash's place, and I parked before I got here. And normally the parking spot there's like a little gated, like single parking spot that's available. It was blocked, so I had to move the car into another spot. That spot belongs to the guy who owns the restaurant downstairs, and that guy was flipping out because this is my spot. So that's why I had to go move the car. But anyway, the reason why the parking spot was blocked was because this fancy ass like Porsche SUV was blocking the driveway. Like, it was a blatant like parking infraction. Ooh. But then I looked in the window, and there was a handicap thing in it. So I'm like, okay, even though this is an annoyingly expensive car doing this annoying fucking thing, whatever, person with a disability, all good, totally understand. Then these two teenage girls come around the corner. They're clearly sisters. They're arguing with each other. They look exactly the same. And they're kind of like dragging their feet, and they just walk into the car. And so the license plate, not to shame them, was called Mom's Cool. She's like, okay, so this is clearly your mom's car. There's no reason for you to be using the handicap sticker. And so basically I just stared at them, and I was just shaking my head like this. I was like, I was kind of like menacingly. I was like, and they must have been kind of confused, because I wasn't really I wasn't standing next to my car.
You should have said
like,
something.
I know. So I guess my question is, like, have you guys done that recently, where you just like wanted to really tell somebody off or shame them? Because that's what I was trying to do. Because I was like, you snot-nosed rich kids, I want to fucking scream at you guys. And I just kind of was like, I just kind of screamed at them with my eyes.
But what if you did that, and then it turned out they actually were disabled? Like, I think of Curb Your Enthusiasm so much that it stops me from doing anything foolish like that.
But I saw they walked right across me. They're a totally able-bodied people.
They did 3 backflips to get into the car. And actually, the one girl went through the sunroof. It was pretty spectacular. He was mad, but he was like, I can't even be that mad. I think that I would say out of the three of us,
I got one. I did. Sorry.
I was gonna say Shane is somebody who will say something. I actually tend to not, like, it would have to be so egregious for me to be like, hey, that's not cool, or stop what you're doing. But I feel like Shane in social situations will be like, stop it, or he will say something.
Yeah. Well, at a movie theater, if someone's looking at their phone, I will throw M&Ms at them, and I won't care. I'll just throw M&Ms, and even like the ones with the peanut inside. So that is something Alex is like, don't do it. And so I've had to stop doing that if I'm with her. But once I was at a movie theater, this is when I worked there. And this is one of the worst things I've ever done. And it really was a Larry David situation. But there was a person walking into the woman's washroom, and I'm working the podium. So this man is walking in. So I'm like, hey. I'm like, that's the woman's washroom. And the guy turns around and goes, I'm a woman. And I go, oh, yeah. And it was just a woman with a short haircut. Yeah. So it was just like, I am a woman. And I didn't know what to do. I just went, yeah. And acted like I was just telling them it was the woman's washroom.
just general knowledge, just shouting it out to people.
Oh, it was the worst.
Yeah, fuck. Mikey, have you? I feel like people with kids have a particularly like short fuse, because especially if they're like kids at risk or something like that. Like child safety is a thing.
I think there's a thing that, like, I mean, again, we've all been sort of indoors for a year, so you're not in many social things where you're in lineups or you're in grocery stores or people cut in front, things like that sort of are the normally aren't happening as much. But I think that there's something that does happen where, like, anyone that has kids knows that things just take longer. Things are just a little bit more difficult. You're kind of like, it takes longer to get, you're negotiating. It's blah, blah, blah. There's just this whole thing that goes along with it. And so I think that, like, there's people that just don't think about that stuff. But once you do have a kid, you're far more likely to, like, make sure somebody with a kid is, like, they get through first, things like that nature. And I'll find myself sometimes being frustrated when people aren't maybe showing that kind of empathy. But I'm like, why would they don't know that it's not lived in experience, that you don't know until you're sort of there to, like, have a lot more patience. Like, if a kid's screaming in a grocery store, before I had a kid, I'd be like, shut your kid up. Like, you got to take your kid out of this. Like, take your kid out of this restaurant. This kid's throwing a fit. Like, that kind of thing.
You would go up to people and say that?
Oh, I'd put him in a headlock. No,
shut that thing up and get out. Mike Veerman?
I'm trying to eat. No, in my mind, I would never say anything, but I could feel myself getting, like, that kind of bullshit. Now, I'm like, when I've had a kid scream in a Mexican restaurant, it's like, 8 months old or something. I just have so much more patience for parents in that situation. Like, Max, how do you feel when a kid's really sort of acting up in a restaurant that you're trying to enjoy a drink at?
Oh, I fucking hate it. I don't think kids should be invited to any restaurants or any public places except for the park, maybe. That's it. Honestly, yeah. I don't want anything to do with that. Another thing, though, that really pisses me off lately, in part because I try to take all my business calls on walks. So anytime I'm out and about, like I'm actually in the office. So it really pisses me off when people honk their horns. And I was standing in an intersection, and then, like, one person was, like, slow on making, like, the advance left, and then led to a honk, led to another. And there's, like, all of a sudden there's, like, 5 cars honking their horns. And I was just like, what the fuck are we doing here, guys? What the fuck are we doing? I was like, because I was so pissed that they're interrupting my call. So I've been swearing at cars a lot lately. Let's.
Wait a second, we're all over the place. Are we circling back to the Grammys? Are we?
I think we're done on the Grammys.
Are we doing greatest duos? Did anything surprise you about the? One thing that shocked me was that. We all agreed that we liked the idea of them all in this confined space where we could see them kind of interacting. That was an interesting element.
That was cool.
Where, as far as, like, the voyeur element of watching these things. I did not know that Kenny Rogers was dead. Did you guys catch that in the news? like I'm watching the In Memoriam, and I went, huh? As a Kenny Rogers, I didn't know that.
When did he die?
I shouldn't be laughing, but
I don't know, man. But I didn't know until he came up in the In Memoriam, and then Lionel Richie was, like, singing a song for him. Yeah. Bruno and Anderson .Paak did a Little Richard medley, which was so pretty sweet. And I love that song, Long Tall Sally, because the Beatles used to cover that, man. That song's just so good.
See, this is why they're after my own heart, those two guys. It's just like, all right, you're going to perform your song. Also, do you guys want to bang out Long Tall Sally? Okay, cool, let's do it. We got awesome. The tools. Like, I just like those guys because you can literally put them in anything. They almost like are perfect SNL characters. It's like, what do you need? Do you need a musical act? Do you need dancing? Do you need singing? Do you need acting? We can do it all.
And doing all that while being totally out of shape adds to how impressive that
is. Okay, so speaking of duos, did you see the live performance of WAP with Cardi B and cool. Megan Thee Stallion? Well, they had a set that was a giant bed, and then they both end up on the bed, and then at one point they sort of like they emulate or they recreate like scissoring, and it was pretty graphic, and it was part of the dance routine. And I'm certainly not like a conservative or whatever. I'm like, do it. But I found myself cackling out loud at how like in your face it was to like the people that were sort of critics of the song or the sexualized nature of the song. Just that live performance was like, I remember like, do you guys remember Truth or Dare, the Madonna thing, when she got like arrested in Toronto for simulating masturbation, like on a live show, not even like on television. It's like, of course that was like 30 years ago, but it's so to come now, and then that's just like a sort of a regular performance. What did you guys think when you saw that?
Is Wet Ass Pussy a sexualized song, though? No, I'm just kidding. I'm kidding. But I'm kidding. How do
it's open to interpretation.
It's metaphors. But what do the lyric change to when they're doing a live show? I'm trying to think of that right now.
Were they saying wet, wet, wet or something? Max, do you remember what they did?
I don't know. I'm not sure. I think that it was strategically put later in the show. A lot of the stuff that I was really interested in, I guess, was the more vanilla stuff, which was off the top. And I felt like later in the show, when maybe you put the kids to bed, that's when the more sort of adult content came about.
All right, so I got a question. You've mentioned how your favorite duo is Anderson .Paak and Bruno Mars. You also wanted us, Max, you gave us an exercise. Think of other great duos or maybe two stars coming together that have sort of become, more than the sum of their parts together. Shaney, did you have anyone on that list?
I did not see that text, but I do remember when I was a kid, I liked when Bo Jackson, Michael Jordan, and Wayne Gretzky got together.
Crow Stars!
Yes.
That's a good one.
That was a good cartoon.
That's a really good one.
I'm not sure if they did the voices for it, but in my mind, it was them doing the voices, and I just thought it was so cool to have such great athletes in one cartoon.
Mike, because I brought this up because, as I said earlier, like a dream duo is Anderson and Bruno. Also, not to keep going on about this too, is that when you look at all the other... Oh, sorry, there's a siren going by. 1 sec, fellas.
Max goes out into the street. What are we doing? What the fuck are we doing here, please? Yeah.
We're trying to save somebody.
I'm doing a podcast.
He yells at them, we're trying to save somebody. Fuck off. If you go through all the Grammy performances, you could make an argument that anybody who performed on that show could have been replaced by like a slightly like lesser version of them doing that. Like Taylor Swift could have been replaced by another girls singing folk songs, or like, maybe
true,
not so
though?
much.
All right, instead of Taylor Swift, we're having, I don't know, anyone. Like, it just wouldn't be the same.
No, I'm going somewhere here.
Okay,
but
sorry,
I just think Anderson .Paak and Bruno Mars have such a unique skill set that make them very, like, much their own thing. I guess the Haim sisters, that you couldn't duplicate that. Anyway, I'll shut up about Bruno Mars and Anderson .Paak. I just think
but it got me thinking about like the greatest sort of like musical duos in history, like the coming together. You know what I mean? And
Yeah.
I think the number one that has maybe stood the test of time, and these people are icons, would be Queen and David Bowie with Under Pressure. I feel like that might be the greatest like one-off. Let's get together. Let's do this thing, and it becomes this sort of historic,
Under Pressure,
iconic song.
That you're right. That is the peak.
What about Michael Jackson and Paul McCartney?
Another great one. Say.
That is a good song, but it's probably wouldn't rank in either of their 10 best songs. Would it be in the Michael Jackson canon in his top 10? Maybe not. Definitely not in Paul McCartney's top 10. This is the thing, is that like as your David Bowie example, like that's top 3 for sure in either of their songs, for sure, and arguably their best song, both of theirs.
It's I think if you talk to Queen and David Bowie fans, I think top 10 is definitely reasonable for sure. But yeah, it's like that song might be. I'd definitely say it's one of their most. I'd say of the two, it's probably their like top 3 most famous songs to just general population for sure.
Jay-Z and Beyonce, Crazy in Love.
That's a great one.
That's a pretty good one.
Aerosmith and
Run DMC.
Run DMC.
Oh, yeah, that's
Walk
pretty
This
good.
Way. Yeah, huge hit.
Because what we're not saying is that this kind of exercise happens all of the time in the music industry, where it's like, let's throw this famous person with this famous person, and most of the time it's pretty underwhelming when you see
Mariah
those
Carey
results.
and Old Dirty Bastard. That was awesome.
The remix of Fantasy.
Yeah, that was so.
Yeah,
good.
I guess it's a little more commonplace in hip hop to see, like, because features happen a lot more. Yeah, but the sort of non-hip hop world, I feel like it's a slightly harder fit. And that's why I think it's that much more impressive. Yeah, the Bowie Queen example is really good.
Last thing on the Grammys for me, surprise Beatle appearance at the very end to present Record of the Year. They rolled out Ringo.
They rolled him out.
Yeah.
Do you find it weird that Ringo like doesn't really drum anymore? Like he's such a like nobody gives a shit about his drumming. Like drummers like Ringo because he's like an original drummer. Like he does things in a quirky, off balance kind of way that are very particular to the Beatles.
He's like a pioneer in some ways, like
for sure.
Yeah,
but if you like need him to do anything with any other act, I don't think he's really trusted.
There's always 2 kits out there. Whenever you see like the whole jamming thing, where it's like, oh, let's get this guy and this guy, and Ringo always sits on the kit that is not mic'd up. 100%.
It's made of cardboard.
He's literally honestly, it's like when you give a little kid like a fake steering wheel. That has 100% been happening for at least 20 years. Like go back and watch like it's like, oh, there's Clapton and Harrison. And they go, and it's like then Ringo's up there just doing his thing, and there's always another drummer.
There's always a real drummer back there.
Absolutely.
Yeah, because like if John Mayer, for instance, is like playing guitar, he played guitar last night at the Grammys, which is another sort of ex-boyfriend of Taylor Swift, who would have been in the room.
Oh,
That's good.
Also, John Mayer showing up in the In Memoriam and playing guitar. Oh, no, it was during the country music tribute. Anyway, long story long, and long hair long, Shane, he had a very similar mane to what you got going on. Really? Did you see this clip of John Mayer?
No,
I feel like he's been doing what you're doing in this quarantine. I feel like he's been growing his hair. It's almost the exact same length, but clearly he's styled his out and was up there ripping, shredding, doing his thing.
But you could trust him with the guitar part. You wouldn't need another guitarist who's actually playing the part, but like unlike Ringo.
100%. Actually, speaking of John Mayer, I was going down like a Eric Clapton YouTube hole like a month ago or something, and there's like a clip of Clapton talking about he's with John Mayer in the studio, and John Mayer ends up playing on something. He kind of just sits down and does it, and Clapton's like that guy's amazing. Like Clapton's blown away.
How long ago was that?
I don't know. It was like from a couple years ago or something like that. But he basically talks about how John Mayer is like a true virtuoso, like in the way that people talk about like, Clapton or any of these sort of like great guitarists. He's like, that guy has like the chops that are sort of undeniable, that's no big secret, but it's interesting to hear it from Clapton.
Let's get to the Shane surprise.
Let's do it. Man, guys, this just flew by. We had Eric in, we had my brother in, and we're already at the Shane surprise. We had like 2 other things that we just never got to.
We'll get to another time.
No, it's good. That leaves the listeners with like, I wonder what they were going to talk about. Well, maybe you'll find out. Maybe you won't.
Well, I don't know if this is a good topic or a Shane surprise, but I wanted to talk about birthdays. Alex's birthday is coming up on March 20th, first day of spring. And now last March 20th, Alex just flat out didn't have a birthday. Like this was prime quarantine time. Nobody really knew what COVID-19 was, how serious it was.
The world was in chaos.
Yeah, like I called Mike right before the birthday, and I think I was actually calling you for birthday advice. And you were either in a hotel or you just got out of a hotel, and you were like, I think I have COVID, man. You're like, I'm Health Canada. I'm waiting for my results, and it's not looking or feeling too good. And I'm like,
I do remember that.
And I'm like, okay. And then we just talk about Mike, and I hang up the phone. I'm like, fuck, because I couldn't get gifts. I didn't really know how to use Amazon Prime, but I'm like,
wait, you were calling me for advice? I thought you were calling to check in on me.
And then I was going to, at the end, you call for the check-in, you see how things are going, and then you're like, you shoot the shit, and then you get to the fun part, and they'll be like, help me with advice, like you did with Valentine's Day. You asked me for some advice. I didn't provide you with any advice, but you asked me.
I was asking people what they're doing for a
but it was so heavy when I talked to you, and the gravity of COVID and everything. So I was like, I can't Amazon Prime something because the disease is going to come in the box, and it's going to
naturally. Yeah.
I'm going to open it up, and it's going to be like that Simpsons episode where they get the flu from the delivery. So Alex just didn't get any gifts. What I got her a box of donuts that I sanitized. I got them. I got in like a hazmat suit, hosed them down and washed them and everything, and just gave her 6 donuts for her birthday. And, everyone has gone through a birthday in COVID time. So I'm wondering, is there anything good or to avoid for this upcoming birthday in 5 days?
So you're looking for like public health advice right now?
Public health advice, like what to do. Or if maybe you have a funny story of a bad birthday. I don't know. Let's have some laughs here, too.
Okay, so these are like just, stuff you've seen people do. But are you guys like, do you guys do outdoor hangs? Could you get like 3 or 4 of her girlfriends to come hang out in your backyard and have like some cocktails,
No.
Okay. You guys don't do that. Do you guys feel comfortable going to like Airbnbs? Can you get away for a weekend?
Yes.
Okay.
See, it's crazy to me that you guys are into that and you wouldn't have people in your backyard. I think you guys are being isolationist right now, and this is a very stupid measure, if we're going to be honest right now. You go into some random person's Airbnb who's quote unquote sanitized it, and you're staying in a room where someone with COVID might have been sleeping, and you're like, oh, this is fine, whatever, versus having somebody in your backyard standing 6 feet apart, and you guys just don't want to see your friends. I'm just calling it as I see it.
Max, whoa, you're acting like he's driving around in a car with a handicap sign or something and parking your spot.
She has a disease. She has an autoimmune disease, Max.
Oh, I forgot about that part. But I think you're fine. I think if backyard hangs are fine. Just do that.
All right.
Okay. Okay. We're all invited to it. They're going to get a tent, 35 people.
Surprise.
No, don't do a tent. I think it's important that the tent isn't there. I'm just saying you have to make it take advantage of the good weather right now and the sun going down a little bit later, and you could have some luck. So it's March 20th is the
Saturday.
Let me look this up.
Hey, would you do this? People did a lot of this for like the kids graduating back in like June, early in the pandemic. Could you get everyone to do like a parade of cars by?
Oh, no, fuck that. It's 9 degrees on Saturday. And you guys have a really nice backyard. Tell her to invite 3 girlfriends over. You guys are going to sit 7 feet and you guys are going to have a really nice time. And it's going to be a little bit of preparation, but you're going to feel so good when you see people in real life. The first time you actually hang out with people in real life, there's no greater gift than that. It'll be better than any fucking stupid Airbnb.
What if I want all of her friends to be there, Max, including male friends who we haven't seen in a while? Will you be there?
If you, yeah, I'll be there.
Really?
If you invite me, I will be there on Saturday. No problem.
You didn't come to our wedding, Max.
Yeah, it's true. Our Kells actually have a gig, private thing on Saturday. Well, I can't come, but